Welcome to Hidden SQuiDZ Gaming. This giant winged bird creature, it's a raven, may give you an absolute headache of a time occasionally. Snatching your trinkets, stressing your people out, and for what? Depending on the event you get, you might be killing the Shrieker for a trinket, you might be getting your items back, and those are typically the only two options you're going to get. In both situations, you can just kill the nest and ignore the Shrieker. There's multiple ways to handle a Shrieker, and there's different events that trigger the Shrieker. There's the Thief in the Night event, which is where you get your trinkets back, and then there's the Shrieker prize event where you get a special trinket from the Shrieker until you have all the unique ones. We're going to go over every way, so there's killing the Shrieker, ignoring the Shrieker, and getting the gold, which is in the nest. The easiest is going to be talk about the gold first. Real quick, killing the nest can get you about 10,000 to 17,500 gold in the champion level, which is not too bad for how typically quick the fight is. It's about usually 3 to 5 minutes if you don't kill the Shrieker, which if you're going to kill the nest, you're not going to kill the Shrieker. There's just not enough damage or time to do so. If you have killed both, let me know which party composition you use, because that's really awesome, because you have to kill the nest first and then the Shrieker. Now we're going to go over the concept and the stats of the Shrieker, just so we have a general overview of what we're fighting. The concept is it's going to blow as much stress damage and damage at you, and then it's going to leave at the end of the 4th round, which means you get 4 full rounds to try to hit into this thing, or the nest itself, whatever one you choose. The health is 154, the dodge is 63, and there's a speed of 9. You are not going to want to dot damage the Raven, since its blight is too high and its bleed resistance is rather high as well. And also, only having 3 rounds of DOT damage isn't really all that great. Stunning the Shrieker is possible, but it's really not recommend doing so in any of the strategies, because you're usually just looking to burst, and the Shrieker also gets up to 3 actions, so they're going to burn through those stunts easily, and the only ability that really physically hurts is Peck, because its critical chance is pretty good. The ability of the Shriekers is to pretty much cause raw damage, which is Peck, or stress damage and disease with Call the Murder, Call, and Regurgitate. These also debuff you for either more stress or less accuracy, which obviously just builds upon that huge dodge. Therefore, if we're gonna kill the Shrieker, we're gonna need about 3 reliable things in your party composition you take in. You're gonna need more accuracy, you're gonna need dodge reduction on the Shrieker, and you're gonna need massive raw damage. Like I said, DOT is not for this fight. First one we're gonna go over is just accuracy. I believe the Jester is a very strong choice, along with the Man-at-Arms. The Jester can increase accuracy, critical strikes, and speed, which is nice. The Man-at-Arms can do very similar things as well. The Jester's Finale may also be something you want to look into because of that massive damage at the end. Now I'm going to warn you, you get to use 2 turns of Battle Ballad, then you have to solo if he's in position 3 or 4, which he will be if you're battle battling. And then you're going to have to use Finale, which means you're only going to get plus 20 accuracy, which is normally a lot, but if you don't get a good debuff of dodge, 20 accuracy against 60 dodge is going to help you a little bit, but not as much as maybe getting to 30 or even 40 by the 4th round. Well, it won't be 40, but it'll still be 30 by the 4th round, which is excellent. However, that Finale damage is amazing, and if you do get a dodge debuff with another character, bringing down that hammer for maybe like a possible 50 damage is a really nice way to finish off the Shrieker. The HP pool of 154 isn't that much. Next we're going to go over dodge reduction. I think you absolutely need a dodge reduction. 63 dodge is just too much to let alone, and also there's really not enough trinkets or other accuracy buffs and raw damage in the game to really ignore the dodge. I have done it a couple of times, I've just found it easier if you take in a Vestal who can do Illumination the first round, because usually your party hasn't taken a lot of damage. If Illumination doesn't work the first round, you can go to the 2nd round. If it hasn't worked by the 2nd round, you're probably going to be healing for the last 2 if one of your characters probably got critically struck. The Shriekers are pretty RNG dependent fight due to the fact it has 63 dodge and you need a debuff to work. The debuff resistance on the Shrieker isn't particularly high, but sitting at 70% is still pretty high, because even if you have a 140% chance, that's only 70%. Therefore, you might want to get a trinket that can add like 15 or 20% debuff chance, just to, make that like a 90%, because at that point, if you get 2 in a row, that's just bad luck, what can I say? Finally, we get to this raw damage idea, and it's not like 150 HP is really that hard to get through. but it's when you have two members priming your party, I'll call it, or buffing, because you have one guy increasing your accuracy, increasing your speed, and they have the other one doing debuff resistance. That leaves two characters to do 150 damage, which is pretty strong, because if you take that over 8 turns, each one has to do about an average of 20 damage per turn, regarding no one misses, which you're probably going to get a miss on turn 2, and if you don't do the strategy I'm going to recommend right now, you're probably going to miss one or both on the first round. I really like lepers, because in the first round you can increase your accuracy by 25 accuracy on both lepers, which is really good, because you get 25 accuracy, and then if you get the minus 30 dodge that the Vestal can do with her illumination ability, you've essentially gained 55 accuracy in the first round, which almost negates everything on the Raven. Now, this is not to say that lepers may not have their limitations during this fight. The Shrieker will move forwards and backwards occasionally, and thus the nest may go into the first 2 rows, and both are large creatures, so they both take up 2 spots. If both of your lepers were to go and the nest is in the front, you would lose a whole turn of damage and there's nothing you can do. Which is why I maybe recommend having your Jester solo and then finale on turns 3 and then 4. However, if all 6 of your leper attacks get to go, this is where you start somewhat chancing it on RNG critical, because you really need the leper to get a critical, but once they do, it pretty much depletes a third of the Shrieker's health. So in 6 attacks, sitting about 40% critical at that point, I think you'd be pretty comfortable in probably getting a critical strike or 2. And even if you don't get a critical strike, it's still going to hit for probably 20 to 40 damage. And if you critical, like I said, it's going to be between 50 and 60, which is essentially a third of the Shrieker's health, and at that point, it's a pretty easy cleanup. Some other honorable mentions on raw damage could be the Highwayman with Point Blank Blast, or Hellion. She can get pretty strong too, and she can also have a good versatility of the rows if you have in her front. Just in case that nest does come forward, she could Iron Swan the back and really help you out there. Any trinkets that make you hit Eldritch harder is also advised, because the Shrieker is Eldritch, so any of the rings that do more Eldritch damage or any quirks really help out a lot here as well. It also might be possible to have the Highwaymen do the Riposte and then do the Point Blank, because the Shrieker does have some AoE abilities that hit the whole party, but it's not many, and if the Shrieker doesn't target the Highwaymen, you kind of waste that turn on Riposte. It's not really a waste because you get to do some damage, but the Highwayman's a more gutsy call. But if he focuses the Highwaymen a lot, it's really nice, and you'll see in the one clip here that I get some lucky Riposte criticals. Doing these 3 things, I think you'll have more consistent success against the Shrieker if you find yourself just going in and just not even killing the Shrieker, just killing the nest. There's nothing wrong with killing the nest. I just like killing the Shrieker because it just drives me crazy. Therefore, increasing accuracy, decreasing the dodge on the Shrieker or the Raven, and having just massive raw damage is, I think, the only way to get through the Shrieker reliably. There are other parties that can do this. Share the parties you like to take in. I just think a Vestal and a Jester are an absolute must, and then I almost always take in a Leper just because of that chance for that big juicy 50 to 60 critical. The Shrieker's not so bad once you get a team that can reliably handle it. However, it's really never one of my favorite fights. Thanks for listening, thanks for watching, like and subscribe below.